She was a flower child dreamer with the whole wide world to see. Then they said, think for yourself, while handing her what to believe. They painted shadows on the windows, said the outside world was cold. But she kept the spark inside her, and that spark refused to fold. Now Magoo is here, with an open heart and open eyes. Magoo is here, laughing loud beneath kinder skies. She broke through the fear, found a world that holds her near. So pull up a chair, Magoo is here.
Great song. I love it. I dig it.
I know, me too. Mark Bunker helped create it. It's really nice.
Impressive.
So hello to everyone who's here and to anyone who comes on. My name's Tory-Christman. It's Tory Magoo 44 on the internet and on YouTube and TikTok. And my guest tonight is Dodge, who's the infamous journalist who we have happily gotten to know over a few years. But you've been a journalist for how long, Dodge?
That's a good question. I guess at this point, 5 years, I would say. You know, I got my first TV news gig, I think, in 2020. So I guess, yeah, about a little longer, about 6 years total, give or take.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, I love all your interviews. I always
Thank you.
I don't watch all of them because I don't have time to, but
A lot to keep track of, yeah.
Yeah, but the ones that I do, I always am happy to see them. I
Well,
like
thank
the way
you.
do things.
Thank you. Well, you know, it means a lot. It means a lot getting your support, because especially when you first kind of start out in the anti-Scientology world, there's always a segment of critics, and you naturally get that. It's always, you know, I always say there's like an 80-20 rule. 80% of people like what you do. 20% will say, hey, you're not a journalist. Oh, you got fired, you know, X amount of times, you know. But then I realized, well, you know, very, very legitimate people who I respect consider me a journalist. So I always say, well, I could call myself a journalist because Tory thinks I'm a journalist. So that's kind of all the validation I need. So I appreciate you, you know, always showing your support. It means a lot.
Well, thank you. I know what you mean, and it does.
Sure.
And it means a lot that you support me too. It's really,
Of course, yeah.
a key thing in the internet. And like I said, you know, I kind of actually, it's so interesting because I got started in this whole OSA thing, the Office of Special Affairs, which is Scientology's secret police, in 1979. We moved from LA to Clearwater, and they had a whole thing, Save Sparkling Clearwater, Stamp Out Scientology.
Interesting.
And I was in Scientology then. And this guy called me in, an executive, and he said, you have to handle this. And I said, me? What about the Sea Org? You know, I'm just a public. And he said, no, his whole thing, Richard Tenney's, was don't trust these people, they're liars. And he said, frankly, we did lie. When we came, we lied and said we were the church of something else.
Interesting. So you didn't even say you're the Church of Scientology.
No.
I never knew that.
Because they were going to Georgia from the ocean. You know, Hubbard was living out on the ocean. He decided to go on land. He was going to park in Georgia. And then he got wind, at least this is the story they told me, and everyone else has confirmed it, that, you know, he got wind that the FBI or CIA were going to plant drugs on the ship. So they zoomed around to Florida, bought the Fort Harrison, and they bought it under another name because they were worried about the CIA and the FBI.
I never knew that. So do you know where in Georgia he docked? Was he like Brunswick or Savannah or Tybee? Wow. So that's a whole alternate history of Scientology. The whole main base could have been in Eastern Georgia.
Right. So, you know, but I'm sure you can Google it and it'll be somewhere in the books. I'm sure it's on the internet. It's just, I'm not a big person for keeping all that stuff because I can't remember.
Sure, I'll look it up though. I never knew there was an alternate plant, because I knew he was out at sea for a while, and then he had to figure out where to get back to. But
right. So that was it, and then they had me be in charge. And Clearwater then had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people were marching around with protest signs.
Funny, even back then.
And I was like, how can I, Tory, with a brand new baby, handle this? And he said, Milt Wolf told me this. He said, Tory, you can handle it. Just do it. So I thought, okay, fuck it. I went out and I found an older woman, probably my age now, but she looked even older. Of course, I don't think I looked that old. But
No, far from
anyway, she really looked like an older lady, and she was holding an American flag and a protest sign against Scientology. And I walked up to her and I said, "What are you doing?" And she said, "These people," and she rattled off a whole bunch of stuff. And I said, "That's not true at all. This is my religion," which I was never into it for the religion, but that was their new PR thing, was we're a religion.
Sure. Sacred, right.
Yeah. And so I said, "You're just upsetting my group of people, and you don't really care. I mean, you don't even know anything about us. You should put down your flags and go home." I said, "The only product you have here is my son is crying." And he was screaming his lungs out. And I said, "That's the only product." And I said, "You're a grandmother. You should just go home." And so she did. She put her flags down and she left.
Wow, it worked.
Yeah. So that
Wow.
was the beginning of me handling every single person, just going person to person, person to person. And then I finally went to meetings and, confronted Richard Tenney and all kinds of stuff. And he got voted out of office. He did.
And then, do you ever deal with Gil Cisneros? Was that much later?
What was it?
Wasn't there like Gil Cisneros, who was the mayor of Clearwater after, who really tried to, maybe I'm blanking on his name. But there's a notable one who got voted out, I think, probably in like the 80s or something.
It was the guy before him.
Okay, interesting.
And he got, they planted a Scientologist in his office and totally screwed him over. And he got voted out. And so that's why Richard Tenney was running as city commissioner for now mayor. So
interesting. And how do you get the person in his office, or what was the controversy? That's smart. So he really kind of infiltrated it from the inside.
Well, he didn't do that. They had already done that. Scientology did that.
Right.
They did. And
okay, interesting.
Gabe Gazaris, that was his name.
That was it. Gabe, yeah, okay, there you go. Yeah.
And
he was a known figure.
Yeah, Scientology had totally screwed him over for years and planted a Scientologist in his office. And that guy twisted around all kinds of stuff from a fact to a fiction, that kind of thing. And because it came from his office, everybody believed it. It was really awful. So then Richard Tenney decided, okay, I'll run. And he had the Save Sparkling Clearwater stamp out Scientology. And, believe it or not, I was a big part, because I was out on the street, right, talking to the people. And I said, these people think we have long fangs. They don't think, and most Scientologists are good people. They're nice people. Not Miscavige and that crew. That's a different thing. But the people are regular good people. And I said, I think we need to have a party, and because most Scientologists won't say they're Scientologists.
Right.
It could be a doctor and they would never tell you, I'm a Scientologist also. I would. We'd go somewhere and they'd say, God, I really like you guys. And I'd say, well, we're Scientologists. We're Scientologists.
You have kind of ambassadors in a way.
Yeah. And these people would say, I can't believe you told him we're Scientologists. And my view is, if everybody said they were Scientologists in this town, we would have a good PR. But it's because nobody will. They think it's only a bunch of weirdos.
Right.
So anyway, they ended up we had a big party. I said, you can't talk about Scientology. You can say, I'm a doctor, I'm a dentist, I'm a mother, I'm a father, I'm this, I'm that, I fix cars, whatever. But then that's it. Just talk to them, listen to them, get their story. And he was voted landslide out of office. So that brought me from zero, as far as OSA, to call Tory. She can handle anything.
Funny. So it's just creating that image. And then all of a sudden for the next election, they didn't have this negative image because they met people who were professionals or were members of the community. Fascinating.
Right.
Well, I
And
always wondered when you first went to Clearwater, what was the downtown like? It was the 70s, but I'd imagine that even back then, there's still somewhat of a vacation area or a touristy area. Was it more vibrant? And even was the Fort Harrison just standing idle, or is it in an actual hotel
no,
back
no,
then?
no, no. The Fort Harrison was jumping. I mean, people from
Interesting.
Italy all sent their kids to the Fort Harrison every summer. So all the Italian kids were there. There were people from
Interesting.
all over the world that were flying in to flag. All the OT7s had to be on flag, and that's true to this day. It's
Sure.
just they don't have that many OT7s. But back then, it was really jumping. It was really a new thing, and everybody
Funny.
was flying it, doing it, and you had to stay forever. It was expensive. But the downtown was sort of like an old little town.
Okay.
They did have stores and things, but the
Right.
town was so upset because various different, like I think not Macy's, but something like that was going on. They were selling, and they said this is because of Scientology.
Interesting.
Scientology is ruining our town, and that was their whole thing. Was like we got to get rid of these people. And I think Richard Tenney really thought he could.
Right.
And it was new for me because I never did anything with OSA, but it was like, okay, I handled it. And they paid me, I think, $27,000 in training awards, not in money. And I never used it because I thought it was sort of dirty money. So
Funny.
I never used it.
But it's amazing they paid you that well, though. I'd imagine, I always wonder, like, at that time, did they pay more people in the upper echelons or even, people? Well, you were at this point kind of being more well known and was actually creating some effect. Back then, did they pay people a lot, like, kind of an upper middle class living? It seems like that's very different than what Corinne Powell would get now, for example.
Well, you have to remember, and this is a big thing on the internet, and I really try to make it clear to people. There's the Sea Org, which is the
Sure.
billionaire
No, I know they're
family.
different. Right.
I know, but a lot of people don't on the internet.
Right.
They don't. And it's really 30% is Sea Org, and the rest are public. So the people they would be paying, I think, is what you're talking about. Is you mean the Sea Org?
Well, right. I mean, well, like Corinne Powell, who's the spokesperson, she's like, I know I've heard many times that she's getting, a very barely livable wage, like something very low,
Right.
like 30,000 a year. She's in addition to being the international spokesperson, is she still technically Sea Org as well? I think she is, but I'm not positive on that, which would
Right.
explain the low wage.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
That's it.
that's interesting too, that these people that are on the upper echelon seem to be more Sea Org than they used to be. Like
No.
you were
It's
never
it's
Sea Org, for example.
I was. I
Oh,
was in
you
the
were,
Sea
right?
Org.
Okay, so you
That's
did
why I
everything,
speak out because
right?
I have epilepsy, and that's why they routed me
Yeah,
out. They
right,
said, we don't take medicine, so you have to get out of here and take vitamins and Dianetics, and that'll fix it. And my mother, thank God, stayed on top of it because I was having grand mal seizures. And she was like, Tori, these people are going to kill you. And they
right,
did kill another guy who had epilepsy who totally followed their directions. So, I was in it for a short time, and then I was in NSO, which is non-Sea Org, on staff at Celebrity Center and then AO. So all three of those I was, and then I did all this stuff with OSA. So,
right.
I was always next to. I always used to say, people would say, "How could you do all this stuff?" And I'd say, "Because I'm on the bridge next to the bridge to total freedom."
Funny,
It's like I'm not on the mind control thing because I couldn't take my medicine if I was.
interesting. So that right, I remember hearing about that. So right, so you and how long were you in OSA? Was it a few years or not even?
Well, I wasn't in OSA, first of
I
all.
mean,
I
I
was
mean,
in the
sorry, Sea Org. How long were you in the Sea Org for?
just
Before the
6 months at the most.
okay,
I
but
was out
chunk of
in
time
the
though.
LA Harbor. LA Harbor. I was in the Boulevard, which is an old, old ship. And I was just on it doing ship training. And then once I was routed out, the Sea Org guys tried to say I owed them $100,000 for
Funny, a
leaving.
freeloader debt.
And I said, get me a pencil and a piece of paper. Because I said, I know there's one sane man on the planet I'm going to write to him. And that was L. Ron Hubbard, which
Wow.
I never realized how funny it was until I spoke at CFI, which is Center for Inquiry, which are critics and skeptics. And when I said that, they all burst out laughing. And it never dawned on me that it was sort of stupid. You know what I mean? It's like L. Ron Hubbard's the smartest guy in the world. But anyway, I knew he would listen to me, and I wrote it up. And he wrote back and said, "You're right. You don't owe that money. You
Wow.
owe $250. You have to pay for staff status 1 and 2. That's all you did. That's it. Continue on getting your auditing. And once you've handled epilepsy, then you can come back in the Sea Org."
Interesting. So there's always that opportunity to potentially come back.
Well, for me, yeah, that's how I got out. Andrea said, you need to start reading the internet. And I looked on ARS, which was what they had back then, and I found this one thing that said, "Ladies, if you're thinking of joining the Sea Org, read this." And it was Mary Tabayoyan, and it was all about enforced abortions, and I knew nothing
Interesting.
about it. And I just cried and cried and cried for like 4 hours, and I couldn't stop. And who am I going to call? At that
Right.
point, I knew I was done. That was it. I was not going to go back. No way. Even though I hadn't, I always thought my husband would leave with me. So we'd been married 26 years. So
Very long
he
time.
was never really a true believer like I was. So I thought, he'll come with me once I get out. I just had to make sure Stacy, Bob, and Jesse weren't really OSA. That was my fear.
That's scary. Yeah, I was just going to ask you how you got that. And when you were reading it, were you scared about who you got it from?
Absolutely. I was
Right.
only talking to Andreas. I wasn't reading. I read Mary Tabayoyan, and I knew no woman would write that whole story about, "Ladies, if you're thinking of joining the Sea Org, read this." And it's all about enforced abortion
Right.
and what it was like and how they made her get it. And then she had to be on post the next day. It was
Wow.
just awful.
Right.
And I
Brave of
just,
her.
yeah. So she was the only person I read. And then I talked to Andreas. And
And then,
Andreas,
and then what happened with her? Did she remain with Scientology, or did they find out? She's an interesting person.
pardon me?
What happened to the Mary who I guess posted the warning? What?
I think she died. I think so.
Okay. Sorry to hear that.
Her husband is still alive online.
Okay.
Yeah. Andre Tabayoyan. Yeah. So
I have some admiration for those people back then because there weren't these mass forums necessarily available. So it was a risky move to even put out some negative information, because you would imagine OSA or somebody would be thinking, who put this out? Are they connected with us? How do they know all this? And it's not like with the modern internet where anybody, it could be one of 500 people, you can really narrow it down.
Right. But remember, I didn't put anything negative out.
Right.
I was terrified of them. So I thought, I knew their drill. So I thought, don't say a word, Tori. Just leave. And I said to Andreas, "I've got to get out of here." And once I read Mary's thing, I said, "I've got to get out of here." And so he had Stacy Brooks write me an email. And I knew she was part of the LMT, the Lisa McPherson Trust in Clearwater. And so I thought, "Oh, this is from Stacy." And I opened it up and it said, "Dear Magoo, who are you? Stacy Brooks." And I wrote back and I said, "Dear Stacy, think about when you woke up from the Sea Org and left. I was so terrified. I said, I can't say it. I just can't." And she wrote, and I sent it. And so I got a thing back and I thought, "Oh, she wrote me back." And I opened it up and it said, "Dear Magoo, sorry we can't help you. Stacy Brooks."
Bummer.
That was my wake up call, because I realized I was like on a mountain 1,000 feet up. And all the way at the bottom was a little sign that said, "You might make it if you jump." And it was I have a sign in
Nothing
my
else you
house
can
that
do.
says, "Leap and the net will appear." But you have to make the leap. You see what I mean? And so I made the leap, and then she and I knew each other. We had audited at AO together. So she said, I know you, you know me. And anyway, we started talking, and she put on Jesse and she put on Bob Minton, and it was wonderful,
So
and
the
so they said,
first early people to kind of speak out.
yeah, well, they were. And so I said, I don't know what to do. And they said, well, come to Clearwater for a couple weeks. And I said, I can't afford it. And then they put on Bob Minton, who's a multimillionaire. And he said, look, I'll get you a ticket.
Cool.
Just go to LAX. They'll have your ticket there. And I was like stunned because I didn't know anything about electronic tickets or anything like that. But he said, just trust me, Tori. Go there and show them your ID, and there'll be
Funny,
a
in its infancy back then.
yeah, infancy.
Right.
And so I think, okay, and all I'm thinking is I've got to get to LAX and get out of here. That's it. That's all I'm thinking. I'm not thinking about OSA or anything like that.
So that's interesting. Did you formally tell people within OSA or your, so-called colleagues that you were going? Do you just not show up to the office the next day? Or is it just like
Well,
a clean break?
no, here's what happened. I first of all called. I asked Bob, what should I do? And he said, get a ride out to LAX with, like a taxi cab.
Right.
Just call him and set it up. So I did. And then at 2 in the morning, I thought I really should let everybody know. And I only thought there were 50 people on the internet. That's how I got on it. I thought, there's not that many people. So anyway, I went on that 50 people. That's about all there was on the ARS at the time. I mean, it turned out there were thousands, but I didn't know that.
Right. It's eternal, right.
And I put Magoo left the building. And you can still Google this thing. It's like Magoo left the building. And I just wrote, I'm done. I'm not doing it anymore. I'm out
Wow.
of here. If you're with me, call me. If you're against me, good luck. That was it. And it was something like that. And I really thought a bunch of people would come with me, but no one did.
Interesting.
And they canceled my van the next day. I was all ready with my suitcase, and they canceled it. And so I
Funny.
called the van company and I said, what happened? And you have to remember, they'd been sending me out for 2 years to handle the critics that were protesting out in front.
Right. So that was your daily schedule, is taking that van to go out and confront them. Pretty impressive. The
No,
protest.
no, 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 no. No, I'm just saying beforehand for
Oh,
2
sure.
years,
Okay.
I had been doing that, going out. The van was to go to LAX, but I had already, there's a whole big thing I'd written. You can watch it if you want, but it's how I escaped out of Scientology, but it's a whole long thing. But they canceled the van and turned against me. And I finally
Yeah.
got a ride to LAX, and then the plane was canceled and the vice president was at LAX. And she came up to me saying, we know where you're going. You're not going there. Which now
Wow.
she says, oh, that was just an accident. It's like, yeah. And you just happen to have the folder of everybody, Stacy, Bob, and Jesse. And they had said, bring a phone. And back then, nobody had phones.
Right.
And we had with little flip phones, cell phones, for emergency. And so they said, bring a phone. And so I said, Stacy, they don't do that kind of thing. And she said, Tori, we used to run these programs. We know what we're talking about. Bring a phone. So I brought the stupid cell phone thinking nothing's going to happen. The vice president comes up and says, we know where you're going. You're not going there. So I
Wow.
get out the cell phone and I go, Stacy, the vice president is here. I mean, it freaked me out. It was like, wow. And she goes, all right, I'm going to put Jesse on. And Jesse Prince gets on. And he says, Tori, I used to run these programs. Trust me on this. Do not set down the phone ever until you're on the plane and the door is shut. And I said, really? And he goes, really? And so he walked me through it, getting on the plane. And she followed me the whole way, writing it down. And I said to Bob on the phone, she's on my ass the whole way. I can't get rid of her. And he said, okay, we're going to get you a first class ticket. She can't afford first class.
Funny.
So that's what's
So
going
they
to
got a
happen.
ticket to be on the actual plane and everything.
They'd already had the ticket. They had the
Right.
ticket when I got there, but she was following me, writing everything
How did they
down.
even know? How did they know that that the van was ordered, that you had the ticket, the time of the flight? I mean, that's wild. And this is all before, the modern internet as we know it.
Right, right.
Did
Well,
you
we think Stacy and I back then Stacy said we think they're in on the travel and MasterCard Visa industries.
Interesting.
So they can track where I'm charging things or Bob is charging things and then track
A
from
lot
there.
of pull. Well, that's what I wonder. Did they back then? Did they have a lot more? Because I don't feel like maybe they could still do all of that now, but it seems more unlikely that people in OSA would be able to look into charges or be able to delay a plane in some way or be aware of a flight. I mean, it is amazing. Do you think they had a lot more kind of governmental and just influence in general back then? It's wild.
Yeah, they did. They did. And they're definitely shrinking. Do you know what I
Right.
mean? As
And
much
that's a
as they
good
try
sign.
to say, we're doing so great. It's like, okay. And every person I talk to on the street, they'll say, well, they certainly are expanding. And I go, and that's
Right.
from what? And they go, look at all the buildings they own. And
Sure,
I
a lot
go,
of historic buildings. Empty,
but
but yes.
you have to remember this question. Have you ever looked in those buildings? And 99% of the people say no. And I say, okay, next time you go by, look in the buildings because this is how many people are in it, if that. And that's a fact.
Scary.
So
Right.
I know. So tell me about you. That's all my escape story.
No, it's fascinating to learn about, again, especially, realizing just how much influence they had back then.
It
And it was,
was
it seemed,
really scary to me.
yeah. Yeah, no, you have I've heard the Blown for Good Ones and other stuff. And I think, I remember you did like a 6-part series. I think I watched it about a
Right,
year ago. And
right,
I think you made that maybe about 14 or 15 years ago, but that was very compelling.
right.
I think
Yeah,
you
it's
talked
still,
about it.
and I made a new one on TikTok.
Oh,
That's
cool. I
my
should check that
escape
out.
story. Yeah. And the TikTok kids are so unbelievably bad about they don't know how to research at all.
Funny.
So
Okay.
they'll just say, "What's Scientology?" And it's like, well, Google it. You know what I mean? Start using the tools. It's kind of amazing. But anyway, I tell them all the time. I started at LAX as a Scientologist, but by the time I got across the country to Tampa, and the Tampa police got me out of the Tampa airport, I was an activist. It was like that's
Funny.
it.
And the Tampa police, then, they were helpful to you, I assume.
Oh yeah, I mean, Stacy had called them. That's how they were
Interesting.
there. She said she's escaping out of a cult. We're pretty sure they'll be here. We need your help. And they were there. And they were like, stand back. Because everybody was
Funny.
running at me. And she said, stand back. And they were
So
two
what
men.
did they expect? Like when you landed in Tampa, were there notable Scientologists from Flag?
There were plenty of people I knew because I was on,
Funny.
Scientology is like a triangle. And I was up
Right.
here. So every 6 months I had to go there. So
Right.
I knew a ton of people. So they brought
Wouldn't leave
all
you
those
alone.
people that I knew. Yeah. Well, there you go.
Were you one of the first? The last thing I want to ask you about you is were you one of the first major escapes back? I assume there's some big ones in the 70s and 80s as well, but
There were, but I was the first one on the internet. I was the first
interesting.
person that said Magoo left the building.
Funny.
It's like everybody, I mean, like Jerry Armstrong and Jesse, they were huge escapes. And,
Sure. They wrote a book and
even,
right. Yeah.
yeah, Mark Headley, those
Right.
guys, they're amazing stories in themselves because the Indians on the reservation that Gold is on, they mainly help those guys get out. A lot of
I
them.
didn't know that. I didn't know. You mean they're natives on it? I didn't know that the gold base was on a reservation. Wow. You
Yeah.
saying California?
Yeah, the gold base
Yeah, I
out in
never
Henry.
inhabit. Yeah, I never knew there's a reservation. Cool. Wow, and that's cool. I never knew, and they assisted people getting out. Never knew.
Yeah, Jesse told me they put him in a hay wagon and
Wow.
put hay over it because it's Gold is quite far from the freeway. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's not like LA where there's streets all over and stuff like that. It's not like that. It's
No,
got
I've
to
been
be
there.
all.
I walked there one time to Jacob Harkey. So we walked all around the area.
Oh, okay.
Saw the inside a little bit, or what you could see from the other end of the fence, and cameras, obviously pointed at us and very aware of what we were doing. But no, I mean, it's an interesting how it's certainly isolated, and it's to even get to a main road, it would be a solid, 2 or 3 miles
Right. Right.
with a lot of
Yeah.
open land. I mean, you go the other direction, you kind of, I don't know if they made it a hiking trail or not, but you can make it one, and you just easily kind of go into the hills, but it's not. Yeah, no, it's not accommodating to get to like a center of town or anything like
No.
that. That's interesting. I had no idea there were natives back then, and I wonder if they're still there. That was something just left over from way back in the day. But
Yeah, I don't know because I know the where it used to be a really bad place where they locked up people is now a school supposedly. And I said, we're going to go down the street. It was a dirt road. And I said, we're going to go see it. And we drove down the road, and the kids in the car with me were like, no, 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 you better turn around. They're going to come get us. And I said, no, we're okay. We're okay. And we drove, and we got up to the gate, and they started revved up their big, whatever, Jeeps or whatever. They were going to come after us. And I quickly turned around and zoomed
fine.
out. But anyway, fun times. And how
Yeah.
did you get connected with Scientology at all?
Yeah, so I have an interesting story. Some people know it, some people don't. The whole reason I got connected with Scientology is as I sort of fell into it because I was a local news anchor, and
Oh,
I had always, you were one of the people that I watched actually, but I had watched Aaron Smith Levin, I watched Chris Shelton a little bit. I certainly, because you've been on YouTube for what I think like 10 years or 15.
I've been on. Well, I've been on since 2000 because
Yeah,
I was one of the people. We were in a living room, and we started sharing stories. And Mark Bunker was there with the big camera,
right.
and I
Yeah,
said, Bunker, you've got to film this. Nobody knows this shit. And it's like, this is amazing. So he did. He filmed it. It's
right.
called OT Speaking Freely, I think. And it's like Greg Barnes, his wife then, he's now gay. But anyway, they were together, and then Peter Alexander and me. So it was the
Right.
four of us. And we all were on OT7, or Peter was OT8, and we all had these completely different stories. I mean,
Yes, yes.
completely.
Right. I watched a few of you, all very disparate.
Right.
It was fascinating. It was, and even the YouTube. I mean, it wasn't that long ago. This was 2022, but there weren't as many people out. I think the Masterson trial created this big explosion, before Streets LA had burst on the scene. But anyway, so I had always been into anti-Scientology content, obviously starting with the A&E reality show. But I ever since I was a kid, I've been fascinated by cults. So I always had this interest in Scientology. And as a TV news anchor, I was presenting a national story that Lisa Marie Presley died. So
Yeah.
she had passed, and what you could do if you want, like you'll be given. I was a news anchor in Yuma, Arizona, so at a very very low level, very small city. But you read the national stories and you get them from like CNN and you get their B-roll. But you're allowed, if you want, you're allowed to change the anchor read. And so
Right.
I just changed the anchor read because when I noticed that when they talked about Lisa Marie dying, they never mentioned her likely willingness to testify in the trial of Denny Masterson, and then likely what was confirmed in Law and Crime and some other sources is that she was going to testify in the retrial as well.
Right.
So I just added that. I said something that should be noted after she passed that the rest of the mainstream media has not talked about is that she was going to get some serious blowback because she was going to likely testify in the retrial, remarked that she was the best friend of one of Masterson's victims, and that she, based on Scientology's instructions, told her best friend not to go to the police, which, is a huge aspect in determining his guilt or innocence. And, her corroborating a lot of what the prosecutors were saying would have been, made a huge impact. And I just simply said, looking at the history of Scientology and the way they fair game people, he was taking a risk, and a risk that she knew was going to make her life or her career at the very least very inconvenient. And it should be noted. And so then Corinne Powell called me and I kind of played dumb, and she said, "Oh, I don't know what you're talking about this fair game stuff. We don't do any of that." And so I said I'd look into taking it down, and I probably would. And then I never responded to her, and then she called me a bunch of other times. And then she went to my boss, and then she would threaten to sue the station unless they fired me. And so then I had a meeting with my station, and we were owned by a bigger company, but the two heads of the station, which is the news director and the general manager, they both wanted to keep me because they asked me. One of the claims was like it was all lies about that she was going to testify and that Scientology does fair game. And I was easily able to give them the sources about, whether it be the words of Judge Olmedo or whether it be the countless, A&E documentary about fair game, everything. So they felt like it was all credible, but the bigger, it was a slightly bigger conglomerate. They owned I think 9 local news stations, but the parent company wanted to let me go. So I was in limbo for about 3 days where they're trying to figure out what to do. But yeah, so then I got fired, and then I went on, Aaron Stream and Chris Shelton and connected with Tony Ortega. And that's kind of how I kind of fell into everything. So it was an interesting twist and turns, I would say.
See how I told him that when I was in, I said, you are creating your own enemies, because they wanted me to
that's what they did.
Take this awful protest sign over to Mark Bunker's house. And I said, no, I'm not going to do it. I said, you just pulled that out of your ass. It's not true. And no, I'm not going to do it. And this other guy did it, Dan Mernan. And Bunker had a picture of him outside his apartment for years, like 10 years. He had a picture of that. It was really good. So anyway, have they fair gamed you?
What's up?
Have they fair gamed you?
I mean, yeah, to a minor degree. And then, best of all is when I went on Aaron's stream and Chris Shelton's stream, the Stands League on their Twitter posted something about me. If you know the Stands League, well, you might have even been the Stands League. I don't know.
No,
way back in the days. That was after your time, I bet. But yeah, so the Stands League says, "Oh, I'm a religious bigot," and had a grainy photo of me reading the news. And they, it was funny because originally the articles of the Stands League was that Tony Ortega got me fired somehow or something, or oh, this poor guy got fired. And Tony Ortega's making it worse for him. And then once they realized I was on Aaron's stream and Chris Shelton's that I was digging into this, they flipped it and talked about how I was a religious bigot. So, I mean, I think they fair game me probably in more minor ways, than others, but at least they created an enemy, because I even offered my boss, I said, listen, I'll even sign an NDA. I'll never talk about Scientology again. You can suspend me without pay for a month. It'd just be good to not get fired. But once, obviously they made that step, and then they made an enemy out of me and covered a bit of the Masterson stuff. And then I had a gig for about 6 months immediately after I got fired, but didn't love it, and then decided to kind of jump head first. And which it's been great so far to do to people like you welcoming me so quickly. So
I know.
I appreciate it.
That's the thing. I mean, I appreciate you being on. I mean, to
Thank
me,
you.
their fair game has kept me going. If
Right.
they, it's like, and honestly, I think it's true for most people. Like Leah said, I was just going to write a book,
Right.
and that was it. And I was going to be on my way. But they had to put up a big website about how awful she is. And, thanks to Anonymous, I always acknowledge them because they came in 2008.
Right.
I don't know if you know that. Do you know the Anonymous story?
Sure, of course. They were the first really big protesters, and obviously famous with the mask.
And see, because of you, I mean, you'll really appreciate the media would not touch us. any of our stories. It didn't matter how high somebody was in Scientology, they would not post it. And once Anonymous came around, there were 500 people here in LA, 9,000 around the world, in almost every major city. And Nightline said, I want to talk to, Mike Grinder, Marty Rathbun. They were ready to, we want to tell the story. Well, we want to hear your story. And then years later, the guy from the BBC came, John Sweeney.
Okay, Sweeney, sure, of course, yeah.
Right. And they totally ran a program on him.
Right.
He fell for it. And then they made DVDs of that whole thing and mailed it around to all the journalists.
What was it? Was it just a scene of John Sweeney screaming at a Scientologist because they were badgering him or something? It was a little moment of like him losing his cool, if I'm not mistaken. Seemed kind of minor.
Tommy Davis, but it wasn't just 1 minute.
Oh, that Tommy Davis. Funny.
Yeah, they had moved it along, you know what I mean? Like running this whole thing against him. So it was just at the end when he started screaming. But
right. No, I know he's being provoked over and over and over and over. And I don't know who wouldn't want to scream at Tommy Davis.
I think his name's Tommy Davis. Anyway,
yeah. Tommy Davis, spokesperson.
Yeah. But anyway, I was in the car with the BBC when they were following them. And this is before he flipped out. And he said, Tory, I don't get it. We're the BBC. We're filming them as we're driving. Don't they get it? That, they're like way behind the ball. You know what I mean? But they had a bigger program that we didn't know about. But anyway, long story short, what happened is all these journalists, after they sent out the DVDs about how he'd flipped out, journalists started calling me over and over saying, you know what? That's it. We're from LA. And for years, we have said nothing because we were terrified they were going to sue us. But now that they crossed the line and that's it. We're going to start speaking out. We're going to do stuff. It was really neat. It was really cool.
Funny. I mean, that, it only takes that one. And that's what they always do. They think they're stamping out an enemy when what they're doing is creating a million new allies or a million new avenues to get that enemy's voices out. So, I'm curious. So was there any reaction? I assume you were still on staff. Was there any reaction when BBC released the documentary? Because that was before Going Clear. That was before the A&E reality show. I mean, that was really the first, aside from Ted Koppel, as you mentioned, it seemed like one of the early news media endorsements of the craziness of Scientology. So yeah, was there any discussion of it or reaction when it came out?
I didn't see it. If it was before 2000, I didn't see it. They really do brainwash you to not watch the end.
Interesting. Even if you're in OSA, you wouldn't, which I think might be a different policy than now.
I wasn't in OSA.
I
was working for my auditor.
Right. So that's right.
Said, look, because they knew from my folders, I wouldn't work for them.
Right.
So they were like, look, let's get Yachty. Because in my session, I'd said to him, look, I'll do anything. Whatever you ask me to do, I'll do it. And they probably thought, there's our mark. You know what I mean? She'll do anything. So There you go. But now I forgot what you just said that we got on this.
Oh, no, I was talking about it's interesting. I mean, I wonder back then, even when you were there, did they have people was there one point person or two to look at all the negativity floating around? Do they have to task someone with that? Or is that a relatively new thing? Because I know now, obviously, and they're in OSA, which you weren't part of at that time, but I know that now OSA has to look at everything. Do they have that back like 20 years ago?
Do you think they do have that where they have to look at everything?
I've been told people, there's a point person OSA who looks at all the anti-Scientology streams, that might be responsible for some of the swatting, who knows, but certainly for some of the arrests and being tactful as to trying to get the protesters in a correct position to arrest them and knowing kind of how they act. Some people say, with watching DOA like a hawk, or watching Danny like a hawk, or Henry like a hawk, or any of these people, that there is always that there's somebody watching essentially every bit of material, which must be a tough job.
That's a different thing. See, what you're saying is there one person who looks at all of it? And
Right.
no, I don't think there is to this day. But is there one person that they have on a program that your job is to follow DOA or?
Right, that's what I'm saying. Right, they have that now. Right, it's not like the person following DOA wouldn't look at all the errand stuff. They might have some, right, but they might have somebody look at, maybe I'm more minor. They might have somebody look at me and Henry, and then someone for DOA, and then someone for errand, perhaps.
Right. Yeah, but they're individuals. You see what I mean?
Right.
And you're brainwashed to never talk about it to anyone else.
Funny.
So it isn't like they are going to share stories. It's like, it. Like my whole thing, my husband didn't know. None of my friends knew.
Right.
Nothing. Because I had signed a thing saying I'd pay $100,000 if I told anybody. So I was like, okay, I won't tell anybody. I really won't. But then they turned on me. See, I realized, I looked on the internet. I was too afraid to look on the internet. And I finally did. And they had all baking recipes the day that I looked. Thank God. And I thought, what the fuck? And it was like how to bake German chocolate cake and cupcakes and this and that. And in between it were people saying, I didn't say that. Scientology is changing my words. And that's when I realized, oh my God, I'm opening these email accounts for Yachty, for my auditor, and he's using them to change their words. And I didn't know that. So, and he was my best friend. So I call him up and I go, hey, Bill, listen, I can't do this anymore. I've got to go back to work. So that's it. And he said, okay, that's fine. We just meet us at this apartment in Glendale. And at 6:00. And I said, okay. And I totally trusted him still. So I go to the apartment, I walk in, the sun is going down, and it's all big men, and they're all OTs, and they're all people that I know who usually go, Tory, hi. And they're all going like this, hello, hello, hello.
Funny, scary.
I'm like, okay, this is fishy. And I'm the only woman. It's all big men and me. And Yachty's not there. The person I trust. And neither is the guy who ran the program, Gavino, who was Sea Org. And I thought, okay, something's up here. And all of a sudden the door slams open and Gavino and Bill walk in. And Gavino says to Bill, I warned you about her. I warned you about her. And I look at Bill and I go, he warned you about what? I mean, I knew it had to come back to epilepsy because it always did.
Interesting.
But it was like, I still wanted to know, what did he say? Because Bill was my auditor, so he knew about epilepsy. So it had to be some little twist they put in there that that Bill wouldn't know about, right? And so anyway, they'd spend about 2 hours pounding me verbally and screaming at me and stuff like that. I finally just burst out crying and I ran out of the building. And Bill came after me. And again, a big mistake. If he just let me go, I might have still been in Scientology. But he, as my auditor, came running after me. And I thought, he fucked up. And he's going to be in big trouble for this because he should have been on my side, not on their side.
Right, because you built that I mean, how long was he auditing you for? I assume some good amount of time.
All OT5 and part of OT7, the setups and stuff like that. And I'd known him for 20, 30 years.
Right.
So, we were really good friends, he and my husband and I and his wife. So it was like, I just said, get away from me, get away from me. And I jumped in my car and I just drove off. And that was really the night I left. I didn't leave for another few months or maybe even a half a year later. But that was really the night that it was just like, that's it.
You left the day to
I
day.
didn't get into Scientology to be thrown under the bus. No.
I wonder, what was your day to day like? Was it an intense 12-hour thing, or do you have more of a manageable 8-hour feed?
No. I was a public most of the time. I mean,
Right.
the Sea Org is different, and even the NSO is different.
Sure.
But most of my time was spent as a public,
Right.
and I had to work. I was
Right.
raising my son for the first 5 years. Then he went to school, and then I just got a job, and I worked all day. My husband mostly worked at night, and so I used to say we were happily married because we were like ships crossing in the night.
Right.
You know what I mean? We'd mainly celebrate on the weekends, so that was it. But I worked, and then at night, he'd come home and we'd have dinner, and we'd goof around, stuff like that. It was just, or if we were on course, we'd go to course. If we were
Right.
getting auditing, we'd go get auditing. But on the weekend, we didn't do anything. We were like, no, we're not doing Scientology on the weekend. And see,
Good
he
for
was
you.
born in it. He's the third generation. His parents got in 1950. So
Okay.
he
Oh,
was
wow. So right when it started, essentially.
right, right. So
What did
there
it?
in the, if you ever see the photographs of Hubbard back in 1950, they're in those
How
photographs.
cool.
Yeah.
Well, God, I'm curious. What did they say L. Ron Hubbard was like?
She loved him. She
Interesting.
loved him. They both did. I mean, you have to he was a different guy back then, and it was like I think in the 80s or 90s, I was helping Bridge, working at Bridge Publications. And they wanted to have the mayor and different, people, big opinion leaders from LA come
Right.
celebrate Dianetics. They have a whole Dianetics thing for the public, but this was for the LA, non-Scientologists. And I said, look, Flo is in town. You should have her talk. She was with Elridge in 1950.
Cool.
And
Right.
they said, do you think she would? And I said, yeah. So she came and told all these funny stories. I mean, they were laughing their asses off. She was like, he was a rascal. He was just like a goofy guy. And
Funny,
we
huh?
loved
So you had a funny. I never knew that. So you had a funny, silly side to him.
totally funny, silly side to him.
Huh.
And the staff came up to me afterwards, many of them, and said, your mother-in-law changed my life. And I know what it was, because he was sort of up as, like a godlike figure. And
Right.
she brought him down to like, no, he's just a guy. He was a
Right.
guy that, came up with Dianetics, but he was a goofy guy and funny and charismatic and,
So that's interesting. I always wondered for people who knew him back then, obviously they weren't around to see the movie, but I always wondered how much he was like the Philip Seymour Hoffman portrayal in The Master, which is
Flo saw that. She saw that. She didn't
interesting.
like
She did. So what she think of the movie? And did she feel it was accurate or
it.
interesting? Not no.
I didn't like it either. I didn't.
Really?
I didn't feel. Yeah, I didn't feel like it really. I didn't feel like it was accurate at all. But I do know other ex-Scientologists who think it's great. So it's just up to
Well,
the
I mean, it could
person.
have got his essence, but it is interesting speaking with you because I've heard like one or other two accounts that there was some lightheartedness in L. Ron Hubbard, and that Philip Seymour Hoffman portrays an entirely intense person the entire time. Somebody who almost communicates as a Christ-like figure in a controlling,
Yeah.
demeaning figure in a way. And then I don't know, obviously it's not officially based on true story. I don't know who Joaquin Phoenix the character was supposed to be a stand-in for, but I think in reality there wasn't that
No,
character with a weird jaw. It had to right.
it wasn't. It wasn't.
Right.
And my husband met him when he was 5. And this is what happened
Funny.
on that. Do you want to hear this?
Yeah, yeah, fascinating.
Okay, so his mother and father bring him. They're going to a congress on the East Coast. So he goes with them. And he's there and he was doing lectures back then
Right.
and taping them. So they're all going in to get their seats, and my ex-husband, wanted to get a candy bar out of the vending machine, and he didn't have enough money. He needed a quarter. So he thought, I'll just buzz in, get the quarter from my mom, and then come back out. So he buzzes in, but Hubbard knew he didn't want the doors going in and out because he was taping. So they locked the doors. So Harold had to sit through this whole long, Thetan body and mind and blah, 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 blah. And he said, oh, it just drove me nuts. And finally it ended, and he comes out. Now he's got the quarter, and he's ready to get his little candy bar. And he said, this big burly guy with red hair leans over to him, and he's like, oh God, he's going to ask me, what was I talking about? And I don't know. He's like really worried about it. And Hubbard leans over to him and he goes, are they giving you enough popcorn and peanuts, young man? And he just said, that's a guy for me. That
Funny.
was, so he was always a Hubbard guy.
Right.
He didn't like, I didn't like Miscavige, and he didn't either, from the day that it
Right.
started. We were there when he announced he was taking over.
Right.
But, when Hubbard it was announced he died.
Well, no, I mean, it's interesting talking about that, to really, the little is because obviously there's a lot to know about his tenure. When he was at sea, obviously in the Sea Org and everything, and there he was a lot more distant and a lot more controlling, and there weren't that many moments of levity. But I always felt like there had to be something in that, because in the 50s, Scientology grew later on, but he was a pop culture icon in 1950, 1951, 1952, 1953, 54, and he was part of this. I always wonder with the people who were first starting it, did they think of it this way? But in the 50s, I think he was part of a larger movement that was looking at things, ways to live your life that were beyond a religious teaching, beyond a Christian teaching. Like
it had nothing to do with Christianity or any kind of Christian.
That's why it's kind of revolutionary. It was a secular way. It was a secular guidebook for morals and way to live your life that didn't have anything to do with Christianity.
Nothing. Or religion. See, a lot of the Dianeticists, the early ones, left when he started the Church of Scientology. They said, no. We didn't get in this for a church. And they left. And I think that's why he created PTSSP, because he had to make a dividing line saying, don't talk to them. If you talk to them, you're going to get declared SP.
Wow.
Which, speaking of it, I have my SP declared.
How cool! Wow.
I know.
Wow, that is quite the essay. Look at that.
I know.
Wow.
I wanted it because Jesse said, I said, I want to get my SP declared. And he said, yeah, they don't give them out anymore. So I had it in my head, I'm going to get it. And then I went to Clearwater, came back home. They had already ransacked my whole house.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Well, but in all fairness, I know my husband let Bill in. He wouldn't let Osa come in.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So he probably let Bill in, and Bill went, look, we've got to do X, Y, and Z.
Right.
Tory's totally flipped out. And
you got to ransack your house.
Yeah. So anyway, all my receipts were gone. I wanted my money back, and I had some money on the counter Flag. And so I went to get my receipts. They were gone. So I called Flag and I said, I want to talk to the finance department. And they said, who is this? And I said, it's Tory Bazazian. That was my married name. And they said, okay, hang on. And they put me through, and this girl goes, hello, this is the Continental Justice Chief. Can I help you? And who am I talking to? And I said, this is Tory Bazazian. And she said, well, do you want to know why you're talking to the Continental Justice Chief? And I said, yeah, I would. Why am I talking to her? Which I knew, of course, but I wanted her to say it. And they have a thing in Scientology where if it isn't in writing, it isn't true.
Right.
And they have that on every course, every auditing, everything.
That's why they have the telex stuff everywhere, I'd imagine. And yeah,
it's really built in. If it isn't in writing, it isn't true.
Right.
So she says to me, do you want to know why you're talking to him? I say, yeah, why? And she said, because you've been declared suppressive. And I said, really? I said, well, you know what? And I wanted to piss her off because I knew if I pissed her off, she'd send it to me. And I said, you might be too young to know this policy, but Hubbard wrote this thing. If it isn't in writing, it isn't true.
Right.
And I knew me saying you're too young would piss her off. and I said, I have nothing in writing. And she said, okay, I will have it to you tomorrow. And I said, well, I'll believe that when it's in my hands. And she said, well, I'm going to FedEx it to you. And she did. She FedExed it to me. So that's why it's laminated, because they were breaking into my house. Yeah.
What was the main reasoning for the in their declaration for their declaring you?
Oh, that I public disavowal of Scientology and Scientologists in good
Right.
standing,
In that comment.
public statements against me, issued memberships in a diverted divergent. I don't know how to say it.
Diverted.
Anyway, divergent group, divergent. So somebody that's against them. Continued adherence to a person or group pronounced an SP or group by SHCO. Failure to handle and disavow and see what happened is this. I did a lot of shit as a young person. So when I got in Scientology, I had all these things that I knew were quote unquote bad for them.
Funny, adding up.
And once I started seeing people getting declared SP, I just started telling everybody because my dad was a celebrity. Did you know that?
Yeah, you played in the NFL, right?
Right. AFL.
Okay, AFL, yeah, but well known,
And then
yeah.
he broadcast with Kurt Gowdy in the 60s.
Cool.
So anyway, but because of that, we had heard this, they were blackmailing some big celebrities. And we would hear different stuff every night at the table. And I just thought, you know what? I got to handle this. And I was only like 15 or something or 14 at the time. And I thought, all right, I'm just going to tell people whatever I did. And if they don't like me, good. Then that's one person I don't have to worry about. If they do like me, good. They're on my side. But it was kind of like, why have secrets against your friends? You see what I mean? It's like you can have secrets, but to me, it was something somebody could always use against you.
Right.
And I thought, I'm never going to be in that position. Never. So when I left, I knew Scientology, they have nothing. When you read the whole SP Declare, it's just a bunch of bullshit.
Just big, yeah, just public pronouncements. There's not much else they could really
because
harp on.
everybody in Scientology knows all my real bad deeds that I did as a teenager. And
Funny.
I told the guy who I bought my car. I told him. I told everybody. It was just one of those things. If you met me, you'd know all about me. So they knew they couldn't do that because those are supposed to be secrets in Scientology. Do you see what I mean? That you tell to an auditor and they never tell anyone. So they couldn't put it on an SP Declare.
Right.
So anyway, it's just a bunch of bullshit. But
did you were one of the first people out? Did you ever get a hate website against you, or did they never do one?
They have what they had started, which this guy used to work for me, but it's Joel Phillips, and he started Religious Freedom Watch. Well, the church started it, but he ran it. He told Andreas and I that he ran it, and it's just filled with lies. And that's what they have. They have a whole section for me of lies.
So you have one, okay? You have one as well. Like Karen De La Carriere has one, and Aaron has one, and you're nobody until you really have one. So it's a badge of honor to some degree.
Exactly. That's how we all feel who are declared, and everyone who sees my SP Declares like, "Oh my God, I want to get one." And I also have a 25-step program to muzzle Tory. Did you know that?
Wow.
Marty Rathman gave it to me because he was online. Did you know Marty? Did you?
Well, sure. And then he had, I never met him, but I know I know his story of him, having a high role and then leaving. And then, I watched a lot of those YouTube with the Clearwater Press or whatever, the Tampa Bay Times, watched a lot of that. And then he, oddly enough, shut up and complimented them back, I guess, due to there's some controversy that they're going to try to revoke his adopted daughter or something. And that was the kind of threat that got him. I don't know how. Oh, I'd be curious to ask you how true that is. But that's what I heard about him. Yeah.
Well, they're famous on finding your buttons, whatever that is.
Right.
And he had said in one of the videos that Louis, whatever his name is, he made that movie, and Marty's in it. And at the end, he brings up his daughter.
Right.
Or a child. I don't know if it's a daughter or a son, but he brings them up and they start threatening like they're going to, he says, what if Scientology starts saying stuff against your kid. And
Right.
Marty just flips out, and you can see it. It's like, wow, this is a big button for him. And so I think they knew that's the thing to go after with Marty. And I think they threatened him and probably said, either you get off the internet and stop posting all this shit, or we're going to go after your kid, and that's it.
Right.
So take it or leave it. And if you take it, we'll give you 500,000 or $1,000,000 because
Oh,
he.
interesting. So they also gave him a nice chunk of money to live
Well, they did
comfortably.
for him. They did for
Right.
him, and we're pretty sure because he was broke, and then he bought a $500,000 house.
Funny.
So,
I never
and
knew
his
that. Interesting.
yeah, and remember his wife was suing David Miscavige and the church,
I
and
didn't know that.
close to winning.
Wow.
See, and that's why they really went after him
What was the
because they.
lawsuit over? Was it like lack of wages, or
I don't remember.
I'm sure there's a lot you could sue him over.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure you
You know,
could Google.
I've always been curious behind the scenes. Is there anybody that you know in the anti-Scientology world that talks to him, or no? Has he like severed all contact?
I have no idea.
Huh.
People don't
Yeah.
talk to me. I'm a declared suppressor.
Right.
So no, I don't. And even if they did, I wouldn't say it, on here. So,
Yeah,
but,
it just
but
makes me. I always have a curiosity for the people who had such big roles, and then they either kind of slowly drift away, or they're still, as strong a supporter of ever. Like I always wonder what ever happened to like Tommy Davis, for example. Tommy
right.
Davidson. Like, he has a weird he never renounced science. Like I wonder if he's still in Scientology or not. Or if it's the same thing, do they pay him off?
I don't know. I don't know. I heard he was selling cars, but I don't know.
Interesting.
They could be making that up. I have
Right.
no idea. I don't trust them at all, on whatever they say, you know. But someone asked Monique, and was she the wife that sued? Yes, she was. And
Interesting.
that
Right.
was a thing. Marty was on doing that blog. Were you watching his blog during that time
I
or
think was
not?
that the part the like the 12-part thing, or no, it's different.
No, it was just an online thing with Marty Ref, and I
Okay, I
forget
missed
the
that.
name of
Interesting.
it, but it was everybody was like, "Hail Marty, hail Marty!" He's just the greatest guy on earth. And I knew, these people like Jerry and Jussie and people that had, left in the middle of the night, all alone, no internet, and this guy, left with the internet and
Right.
attorneys and everything else. And so I would go on there and say, look, just so you guys know, there were people like Jerry Armstrong and Jesse Prince and different names I would put out and that left all alone in the night without the internet.
Right.
And no one would talk to me, not one person. One guy would sometimes acknowledge me. So
Funny.
now Marty sends me an email and he says, open up a Hushmail account. Do you know what that is?
No, never heard of that.
Well, it's like a thing where you have to get the password and I have to get the
Okay.
password. And
Funny.
before we
Right.
can talk, we both have to have the code.
Super
Right?
encrypted.
Yeah, super. And I'm like, okay, whatever. So I open it up. I think he's going to bawl me out. It's like, come to the principal's office, get off my blog. You're not an independent. You're not for Scientology. Get off
Right.
my blog. I'm totally ready for him to bawl me out. And I open it up from Marty Raff, and it's this big, huge thing for your eyes only. That's what it's titled, and it's a 25-step program. With the goal is to muzzle Tory.
Funny. What was their
Which,
ultimate goal? What is muzzling you? Is muzzling you taking you away from your employment? Is it getting you off the
no, no,
internet?
no,
Like, what was the end of?
yeah,
What's up?
just get me to stop talking about
Right.
Scientology. That was the
How did
goal.
they do it? What were their steps? What to hack your? Would they hack
Oh,
your
they had
communication?
awful
Or
stuff. They had my husband going to the Better Business Bureau and complaining about me. They hired somebody to join my work where I was working, get papers from there, put them in my garbage, and then come steal them and say, Tory, this is proof that Tory stole from her business. You know what I mean? It was just unbelievable. It was just all
wild.
kinds of shit. So it was pretty creepy stuff. So Anyway, Marty put it up there, and I said, "Look, I want to be able to say my side of it because it really makes me sound like a nut." And he said, "That's okay." So we have, their thing, and then what I have to say about it, and then their thing and what I have to say about it.
Interesting.
But many people have said, "I wish I could get my program," because anybody has a program on it. It's just I had one because I went on Marty's site and kept bugging
Right.
him. Do you know what I mean? And he was like, "God damn it, this woman won't shut up." You know,
It's helpful to know though, because I guess you kind of knew how they dealt with people because you were sort of doing an aspect of that. But it's fascinating to see, like, do they apply the same steps with other people that they applied to you?
I
They're all
have no
different.
idea.
Right.
I mean, they've done worse things to other people,
Sure,
you
but
know,
they really try to meddle in your job and your business and livelihood, and more than just trying to get you
flattened
to
my
not talk.
tires, broke into my house,
Oh my
stripped my
God.
whole computer of nothing. And that's why I know it was Yanni, because my husband doesn't even know how to turn on a computer, or didn't in 2000.
Right.
And so I knew it was Yanni because I knew Harold wouldn't let Osa come in and do anything. But Bill could say, "Look, there's a lot of shit on here we don't want made public. So I'll just handle it. You just have a seat and I'll handle it." And he just stripped everything.
Funny. Interesting.
Yeah. So they did a lot of stuff. They called around to all the media after a while because I was doing interviews and said, "Don't talk to Tori. She's this and that." And a few of them bought it.
Oh,
Not a
really?
lot.
They
Right.
actually, wow.
Yep. I
Wow.
had it set up to do an interview, and the guy said, "No, no, I can't anymore. We found out about you." And I said, "You found out about me from who?" They're really good at getting people over in
Right.
the corner, that isn't really someone that you'd connect. "Oh, this is Scientology."
It's interesting to hear about that because them, messing with my news scene seems like that's just what they've done for a long time. And
Long
it's either get rid of the person or get rid of right, get rid of the subject and convince the person interviewing the subject that the subject is unworthy, or discredit the interviewer and get the interviewer away from their position so they can no longer talk about Scientology.
Right,
And right, and that was certainly it's like one or the other. Um,
right.
and it's a shame that some of the reporters bought it, and and there've been instances. I can't remember if it was Australia or UK, but the guy was very aggressive. A reporter, the newspaper kind of stood by him, but not after withstanding threats of lawsuits and everything like that. So it's I guess some things never change, obviously.
Yeah, I was here in the valley and someone wanted to interview me. So she came and we met and we talked, and you could tell just from listening to her, she didn't believe me. And I said, "You're having a hard time believing this, right?" And she said, "I really am. It just sounds too weird." And I said, "Okay, let's drive over there. Let's see how it goes." So we get in the car, we drive over to Celebrity Center, and they have a little pretty lawn. And she says, "Oh, their lawn is really pretty." And I said, "Well, go check it out." And she just steps on the lawn with the flowers. And this security guy comes out and he says, "Get off our lawn." And she goes, "Pardon me?" So "I'm a journalist." And you have to
Hmm.
remember, they hate journalists.
Yeah, don't
So
they ever?
it's like top on the list of hatred. And he goes, "I don't care who you are. She's a declared suppressor and she's not allowed to be on our lawns. And you get off." So she gets off and we get in the car. And I said, she goes, "Wow, that's really hard to believe." And I said, "I tried to warn you." And I said, "Let's go over to the complex." And she goes, "Really?" And I said, "Yeah." So we drive over there. We're parked on Sunset. So that's a public sidewalk. Boom, the security guards are there. "Get off of the street." I
Wow.
said, sorry, pal. This is a public street. You can't throw us off of it." And she's just like, "I am stunned that this is a church and they would do this kind of thing." So,
Another example of backfiring, them exercising so much control. Now, to a journalist, they look, pretty psychotic and
right,
not like a religion.
right. Whereas if they just let her walk through the
Right.
garden, she would have
Right.
come out. That would have been it. She would have thought I was crazy.
Right.
But they never learn, not ever. I mean, look at those kids running through the building. Have you seen that?
Yeah. What's your thoughts on that? Do you think it a good idea, bad idea? Just be careful
Well,
about it. Yeah, it's
yeah,
interesting. All the speed runs, I guess, is what they're called.
yeah, speed runs. Me personally, I made a video about it right away and said
Okay,
I'm not
missed it.
for this because I'm afraid someone will get hurt.
Right,
Whether it's Scientologists or the guys running through. Either one. I don't like, even though I'm an ex-Scientologist, I don't like to see people hurt or dead.
right.
And you just don't know with that what they're going to do. I mean, Anonymous, I tried to warn them, and two guys went with swords to Celebrity Center,
Oh
and
yeah. See,
they killed them. Yeah, they're dead.
wow. Right. Well,
So
I mean, that's something similar happened. I think it was in Washington. A guy got arrested for making the Scientologists feel unsafe, and I think he had like a paintball gun that looked like a gun or something pretty bad. You know.
I know
And
it's funny, but it's not really.
right,
And
it
that's
is.
what
It is. It is. Right. Right. Right.
yeah,
But then,
I get it.
unfortunately, it makes the rest of the movement look bad because then you're getting a serious charge, and uh, it could be a slippery slope. In theory, it's good, and I mean, maybe it's one of the things like quit while you're ahead, while something horrible hasn't
Yeah,
happened yet. But
yeah. That's what I think. I think they got their product, which was the guy ran through, and that was the main thing that's just been played over and over and over. And then that
right.
other guy from TikTok interviewed Streets
No,
and
right.
Aaron. Who was it?
Uh, I'm blank. I know what you're talking about. I'm blanking on the name too.
He's a big guy on the internet. Anyway, he interviewed me, and super nice guy, super fancy, equipment and lights and everything. It was really
Well,
great. It
nine
was
yards.
really
Cool.
nice. But I had no idea he was going up to CST, which is the top of Scientology. He went up there and jumped over the fence and
Funny.
went in looking for Shelley and stuff. Crazy. But
Guess
I
that
just
didn't
want
work,
people
but
to be safe. That's the thing. I want them to make sure they're safe.
yeah, I was wondering this too. Does Scientology still have the same teeth that they had like even 10 years ago? Like, for example, or 20 years ago. Like, for example, one of the victims of Masterson, her husband, their dog was killed, poisoned during the Masterson, right before the Masterson situation. Do they still have that power anymore to like really like mess people up that way, or do they not have that same staff or that knowledge? I always wondered, it's like, are they just a paper tiger now?
Well, I'm never going to say they're a paper tiger because then they will have to be out and prove me wrong.
That's true.
So that's number one.
It's a good point.
Number two is that I know factually they have diminished because of these cameras. The
That's what
cameras
it is. Yeah.
they have always hated cameras, always.
Right.
You
Well, now
that's
it's
why there's
internet age. Yeah, nonstop.
nonstop. And I used to just set my foot on L. Ron Hubbard Way when Anonymous was around, and they went, she shut him down in 3 minutes, and that
Funny.
was when it was mobbed with people.
Right.
Now the live streamers come, and we went to do that protest with Aaron. I think it was about a year ago.
Right.
And I thought, I bet it's different because of all these cameras. And I literally walked down there into their parking lot, sat down on a thing. It took a while for the security guy to come out, which usually they're
Funny.
there in a minute.
Right.
But there were like
Right.
10 cameras on him. And he said, get out of here. And I said, look, I just want you to know there's 10 cameras, and all of them have about 50 to 100,000 people that are listening and watching. So what you're saying is very important. So I know he went back in and talked to his boss, and his boss said, let her do whatever she wants. Just
Right.
leave her alone. And they did. We went and sat on different benches that normally
Funny.
we were never allowed on, that kind of thing. Knocked on the door, and they. So I know that the cameras have really made a big difference for them. And it's one of those where I'm not going to say they're not going to do something mean to someone's animal, because I wouldn't want them to then go do it. Do you see what I mean?
Right. Right. You don't want them to call your bluff. Yeah. Right. Good point.
But you and I know if they do, it's going to be around the world. You know what I
Right.
mean? That kind of thing. Like if your dog got hurt, it would be around the world. It would just be like, that's it. No. People, so that's the thing that I think finally maybe they know because of the videos.
Everybody know about it. Yeah, that'd be right.
Because we've told them a million times, but they don't listen to us because we're SPs. But you guys aren't really SPs. You're just people with cameras.
Right.
So that's very valuable. Very valuable.
Well, because there's a lot of people that were never involved in the first place, which
Right.
is different than it used to be. Right.
Yeah. So they don't have the same built-in fears or anything.
I always wondered when you were working, when you were working closely with them, was there ever a desire or a projection as to how many people they would get by like 2020, for example? Well, maybe not. They probably never gave you the real numbers anyway, but do they fantasize saying, oh, we could get 200,000 people? Or they're already telling you they are millions?
Oh yeah, millions. They had millions when I was in.
Funny, right?
A few years ago, I went with my friend, and we were going to go to the movies, and I said, let's just go by the complex. So we drive by. It was Christmas time, so they had all these fancy lights.
Right.
So we pull over, and there's only one guy on the street. That's it. And he's walking down the street, and I say, hey man, these are really nice lights, right? And he goes, yeah, they really are. And I look at my friend, I go, he's a Scientologist. And I said, are you a Scientologist? And he goes, hell no. I'm an ex Jehovah's Witness. And I said, what are you doing here? And he goes, my friend is in there doing the personality test. And I said, okay, right away, get him out here. Get on your phone, get him out here. So he does. He calls him up. The guy comes out, and I start a Facebook video because I think this is the first time we've ever in 26 years, I was 25 at the time, seen somebody who's doing a personality test.
Right, walking in.
So he comes out and he sees the camera. I'm not filming him. I'm just starting it and saying there's somebody that's going to come out, and I'll ask him if he'll talk. And he goes, are you making a film? And I said, not with you. No, I'm not. It's just a Facebook film. And he goes, no, I want you to film me. Put it up. I want to show my personality test. And he holds it up.
Funny.
And he goes, they told me I'm up and down and up and down and up and down. So that means I'm insane and I need auditing. So I'm buying $5,000 worth of auditing.
Wow, $5,000.
Yeah, for a brand new person. So I said, okay, first of all, the auditing isn't going to work. Okay, so let's just get that straight. Don't just throw away $5,000. Secondly, there's a security guard that's going to be here in about a minute, and they're going to tell you not to trust me and how evil I am and blah, blah, blah. So there you go. The security guard comes just like I predicted. They take him inside.
So they get him back inside.
Yeah, they got him back inside. And I say to my friend, the friend's friend, I say to the guy we're talking to, that's the ex-Jehovah's Witness, look, go get him out, get him back out here. And so he goes to open up the door, and they've locked the door. So he's locked inside.
Oh my God.
And so I say, look, call him up and say, you can't lock us. You can't lock my friend in. Let him out. So, and the girl outside is videotaping this. So he comes outside, and he's like white as a sheet. And I say, what happened? And he goes, wow, they really hate you. And I said, well, I warned you. I warned you. And he goes, I said, but you're not going to do it, right? And he goes, nah. He goes, I'm going to Japan. I'm a wrestler. I'm going to Japan.
Cool.
And I said, okay, good. So the next day I call him just to make sure I get his phone number. And I say, look, I just want to make sure you're okay. Because in the old days, that didn't matter. It didn't matter what somebody said. We'd be out there getting the money, right? So I called him to say, you didn't give him the $5,000, right? And he said, hell no. And I said, okay, can I just ask you, like, what did they say about me when?
Yeah, right. That's curious.
Said they really hate you. And he said, well, you, and somebody sent me this hat, are a top secret undercover OSA agent. No, not OSA, CIA.
CIA? Wow.
Agent. So I'm escalated. I was like, wow, really?
Very cool.
And he said, yeah, they were very definite on it that
CIA.
you are a undercover CIA agent.
That makes it
And
seem kind of cool. I don't know
I
if that
know,
would turn
that's what
anybody
I
off.
thought. I know. I know. I thought it was really cool. That's why I promoted it aloud because it's a funny story. It's true. And now I'm not just an SP, I'm CIA, so undercover, of course.
Funny.
So there you go.
Wearing many hats. OSA, CIA, Sea Org for a moment.
And OT7, don't forget that.
So you made it up to OT7. So I'm curious, before South Park lampooned it, you never reached Xenu, I assume.
Oh yeah, I have.
You did.
But I didn't see the South Park thing until I left.
So what was there? When you reached Xenu, what, like OT3 or 4?
No, I did OT3 in 79
Okay.
when we moved there.
Right. So OT3 you did in 79. And then which is the OT level where Xenu is revealed? Is that OT3?
OT3. Yeah.
So back in 1970, what was it the description as South Park says, or what? How do they actually describe Xenu to you, or do they not? I'm
Oh
always
no,
curious.
nobody. You have to understand, Scientology is like a triangle, and OT3 is just the top. These guys know about it. All the
Right.
rest of this, nobody knows about.
No, I
That's
know
why I
that.
say
Right, gets revealed. Sure, they don't even know it exists, or there's something to be
yeah.
revealed, or anything. Right? No, right.
So I wouldn't hear about it because they know. I think they know. If you knew about BTs and clusters, most people would leave. You know what I mean? You'd just
Right.
be like, no, I'm not.
But
I didn't really.
you have to know about it at OT3, isn't that part of it?
It is part of it, but see, you don't know about it until then.
Right.
See,
Sure.
and,
Right.
and for me, not like now they have a big course room for it because they have so many. Like Hubbard had different volcanoes that don't even exist, right? So they have to do this whole walkthrough to get people into this. But at my time, it was just a closet, and they opened the door. They said, "Have a seat." I sat down. They threw just like a folder, and they said, "Here's the OT3 material." And all these people, you have to understand me with epilepsy. Everyone from 1969 when I got in until 1979, which doesn't sound like that long, but it's a long time in
And
a
yours.
cult. Yeah. And everyone is saying you need to do OT3. That's going to handle this for you. That's it.
Interesting. So that was going to be the answer to all the problems.
Right. So now I read this thing and I'm like, you have got to be kidding me. Come on. And I'm really upset. And then I think about it and I think, and they're really big on you have to come up with a solution. And so I'm like, all right, what's the solution to this? And I think, well, doctors don't know what causes seizures. They to this day they don't.
Right.
So maybe this is it. So I
Funny.
decide, okay, I'm just going to dive in and do it, even though it's totally weird. I just decide it doesn't matter how weird it is. This could be why you're having seizures. And so I have huge wins on it. People come over to me every session and say, we have never, ever. And I don't think they were just bullshitting me because they were just stunned. They said, we've never seen people change like you're changing on this level. And I said, I know. And I didn't tell anybody about the epilepsy thing. But in my mind, I was erasing epilepsy.
Funny. So you're letting that be the excuse of you progressing, but it's really just you getting the epilepsy under control, or
No, it didn't. I ended up stopping my medicine because I thought I don't need
right.
medicine now because I don't have the people causing it. And I went into status epilepticus, which is multiple grand mal seizures. And I was smart enough in 79 to go, don't call Scientology, Tory, because they're going to put you in a car and drive you out to some doctor a million miles away and you're going to be dead. And so I called this guy, Jerry Hall, who was on the fence, pretty much leaving Scientology. And I just said, Jerry, get over here right now. And he came over, and I knew he would take me right to Morton Plant Hospital, which was right down the street,
An actual hospital.
right next to Flag. Yeah, that's the big.
Interesting.
If they let Lisa McPherson stay there, she'd be alive today.
Right.
So that
Walk
it's a
away.
big hospital. So he took me there, and the doctor said when I came back to consciousness, they said 5 more minutes and you would have been dead.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
So they have heavy medical abuse. That's one of the reasons I speak out, because I want people to know. Look, they'll say they can fix it, but can they?
Do they
No.
even believe in seizures? I know they wouldn't believe in the medication for it, but do they believe in, or they say seizure is
They saw him, so
withhold?
it doesn't matter whether they believed him or not. I
So
had
they're
him
not
in
going to
New
say you
Orleans.
started shaking because you have overts that you were withholding or anything.
No,
Or
no,
okay,
no, no,
so they don't get that crazy.
no. I mean, I think they knew people would say, no, she's having a seizure, and
Right.
they get pissed off at them. So but they were just like, she's just very low responsibility. That's what's happening. And they would always blame me. It was like
You're
this or
right.
that.
What do you do
There's
to pull it
always
in?
something. Yeah. And luckily, my mother stayed on top of it because she could hear I was losing my short-term memory.
Oof,
And she
scary.
started, yeah. And so she started saying, look, they're going to kill you. And I said, no, no, no. I'm taking Dianetics and vitamins. It's all going to work out, Mom. Don't worry about it. She was in Chicago. My grandfather's a doctor. And I know my grandfather got with her and said, look, get her back on her medication. I don't care what you have to do. So on the phone, she said, I'll call, what are you doing tonight? I said, oh, I'm going out on a date. And she said, okay, I'll call you tomorrow. She called me the next day. And I know these guys have heard this story, and I'm sorry if they've heard it, but it's a good story.
Yeah.
She said, okay,
Yeah,
I'll
sounds like
call
it.
you tomorrow. And she called me up and she said, how you doing? And I said, great. And she said, how was your date? And I said, what date? And she said, okay, that's it, Tori. Either you're on your medication today, and
You
I
don't
know
remember you
this
had a
is my,
date.
and this no, and this is my grandfather who put it in her head, and he said either she's on her medication today or you're gonna fly out there, and she said I'm gonna fly from Chicago to L.A. and believe me on this, Tori, L. Ron Hubbard and the Church of Scientology will never forget your mother. And I knew my dad was an opinion leader, and had many many lines to media, and I
So I was
thought
going to
I
ask
know.
you, were your parents involved in Scientology?
No, not at
No.
all.
Okay.
They didn't want me to do it, so I knew she would be like, she wouldn't just come out and bawl them out. She would go on media, on ABC, NBC,
Funny, she had that much pull, that
yeah,
much.
and say,
Cool.
well, they knew people who did,
Right.
and she would be like, don't let your kids get in this. And I just thought, I don't want to have seizures anyway, so this is my excuse. So there you go. That
Were
was
you
in
able to?
19.
Did you see your family that much when you were fully with Scientology? Well, I know your father passed away relatively when you were relatively young, but I guess did you see your
Right.
mother that much, or
I did, but she ended up, he died, and he was great. And
right?
he died, and she ended up marrying a super jerky con man.
Oh no, my God, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So then they moved from Chicago to Florida to Fort Myers, which is 2 hours south of Flag,
Sure.
and started a magazine because he was the editor for Look magazine.
Oh wow, yeah, sure. I know. Look, of course,
Yeah, right. So they started
big fashion.
they started 2 magazines, and then they became millionaires. And then these con men got with him,
Hmm.
and he was a big know-it-all. And they worked on that, and they ended up giving him everything: their
Oh my
house,
God.
yacht, all their money, everything. They were completely broke when they died.
Oh God, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah,
So it's one guy.
it's like, it shows. I tell people, because know-it-alls are very spooky. They can really, you know,
Convince
like
you
if
they
you're,
know it all.
yeah, that's why I speak out. If you're with somebody who's abusive, get away from them, because your own instincts are correct. Have you ever read the book Blink?
No, I'll check it out.
You should check it out. It's a really great book about your first instincts are the correct.
Interesting.
And the first one is the Getty Center, and they have a statue in there. And for 2 years, people were admiring it and everything. And finally, one day, this guy walked in and he said, "That's a phony. It was never in the ground." So they went to the guy that bought it, and they said, what was your first instinct about this statue? And he said, my very first instinct? And they said, yeah, your very first instinct. And he said, well, my very first instinct was it's a phony.
Funny.
So it just shows, a man hears what he wants to hear and disregards the
Right.
rest. Yeah.
And then was your mom relieved when he left Scientology, or did she have an opinion about that, about the cult?
Big time. No, big time. Big time. She was thrilled, and my brother was too. I wasn't in touch with my oldest brother, who I am now, but I wasn't. And my older brother just passed away. He
I'm
was
sorry.
80, and he was a DJ. Well, it's kind of worked out good because he was a DJ, a big partier his whole life.
Fun. Okay,
Cruised
cool.
around the whole world having fun, doing
Sounds like a great
drugs.
life. Yeah.
Yeah, he had a fabulous life. And his nickname is DJ Chicago. And
Cool.
you can look him up all over on
Oh,
Instagram.
cool. If you don't figure, I'll look at DJ Chicago.
Oh, yeah.
How cool.
Oh, yeah. And so, in a way, it was kind of perfect because he had a stroke and then he came back too, and he was just like himself. And we
Funny.
all thought he was going to get better. But everybody in the meantime sent him videos and thank yous and we love you from all around the world.
That's
all
sweet.
kinds of people. And
So you
then
got to see how much he's appreciated.
Yeah.
And a whole
And
fan base.
it was kind of, yeah, he had a huge fan base. And it was kind of great because, he didn't have to suffer. You know what I mean? He would have had to live inside, out of the sun, not partying
Right.
and not doing drugs. And that was his whole life. So,
Well, that's
it
what
was
was
like
fun. Not bad for what? Hey, so he made it to 80, you said?
80. Yeah.
Pretty
So
cool.
I'm thinking,
All
good for
right. So he
him.
partied, did some
Rock
drugs,
and roll,
lived a
traveled
long life.
around. Yep.
Badass.
Had a child at 50.
How cool. Really?
I know. Yep. And then became a DJ at 60.
Very cool.
I know. So it just
What a
goes to
wild
show
story.
it's never too old to do
That's what I always say to my mom. She says, when are you ever going to have kids? I'm 35. She said, well, talk to me when I'm 50. But
oh God.
maybe.
Tell her about my brother.
Right.
I mean, and I'm telling you, his kid did the greatest. They were going to cremate him, and they cremated him in a Buddhist temple. And
Cool.
these Buddhist monks were there chanting. It was so
Oh,
beautiful.
cool.
It was incredible.
Oh, that sounds
And
beautiful.
so they had a big ceremony there. And the other good thing I forgot to tell you is the three of us had talked about it before he had the stroke. And I said, look, we're all getting old. Let's just talk about what do we want to have happen if we do pass away. And we all agreed, we all loved our lives. We all three had very different lives, but creative lives, fun lives.
Yeah.
And we all agreed we liked our lives.
All seem happy, yeah.
If we die tomorrow, celebrate our life.
I like
if we live another 10, 20 years, that's good too. So he was the first one to have a stroke, and there you go.
Right.
It was a surprise, but I knew he had said very definitely celebrate my life. I'm good. I've lived a great life, and he did. He really did.
Treat people well, enjoyed himself, had fun, went all over the world, saw everything you wanted to see.
Yeah. Onward and upward always. That's his quote. And the other one is gratitude. Having gratitude.
Powerful.
Yeah. So just go and tell your mom about my brother and say,
I will, definitely.
And the son ran the whole funeral thing, everything. He ran it. He's like 45 or something now.
Okay.
Or 40. But I think he's 40. Anyway, I forget how old he is. But anyway, he did a great job.
Someone in the chat said start questions when you're ready, by the way. I don't think we've read a single chat. So I don't know if you have any there are a bunch of starred questions.
Oh my God, I'm sorry. Dodge, what story are you chasing now? That's
what story am I chasing now? Hey, Donna. Story I'm chasing now. Not too much, except just the Michigan primary and covering a bunch of rallies for that. And
I love that girl.
What's up?
I love that girl in Michigan.
Who said you're talking about Mallory McMurrow?
Yeah.
Oh, I like her too. A fellow redhead. She dropped out, sadly.
Oh, why?
But I liked her a lot too. Yeah, it's a bummer.
that's
They
too
people
bad.
people thought she was too moderate. Well, not that she was too moderate, but she didn't pick a lane because Abdul Al Sayed, who's the more hard left guy, he's full
Yeah,
Medicare for all and more anti-Israel than Haley Stevens is endorsed by the big Israel lobby group. And
my God.
she's very moderate, and McMurrow was kind of in between, and people didn't like that she wasn't fully one or the other, which I
Yeah,
don't think she should have dropped out. But yeah, she did. She did
yeah.
just. I got a clip of her with my dog though, so that's cool.
Ah,
They
that's
got to
cute.
meet.
So cute.
So yeah, that's the story I'm chasing now. I'm always waiting for Scientology stuff. There's that the appeals effort with Danny Masterson that's going to be ruled on relatively soon. I don't think it's going to go well for them, and my assumption is actually, Tori, have you been following that? Like my assumption is the appeal will be denied, but then you look at this could be similar with either Harvey Weinstein or Bill Cosby, and both of those were able to get something flipped.
Yeah, I have no idea. I know how dark they are and how they can get behind the scene and turn things.
Right.
So
Well,
I would.
it'll be interesting to watch because that will give an answer to our conversation as to how much influence does Scientology have now in the back channels, whether it be the
Right.
police, whether it be a judge, whether it be media. If for whatever reason, uh, because the essential argument that the attorney made was just that there was there was too much about his religion and it was religious discrimination and why it's a violation of his privacy and you're being bigots by saying his religion had a role in any of this, whereas in the reality I think the judge sees this because he made some sort of comment. I forget what it was. Tony Ortega has a good rundown of it, but
Right.
the judge seemed dismissive of it, but that's their big argument. But then the judge will rule. And obviously the religion is important because it's religion that got him to do all of this. And it could have been a religion, it could have been a corporation, call it what you will. Scientology hides behind the luxury of being called a religion when they do things a corporation would do. But but it'll be interesting to see what that's going to be a big story if there is an appeal granted. Obviously, that's going to be the next big Scientology story.
This is my new thing that I type in, and it's now in AI because they bring it up all the time. I say Scientology is a mind control, and every one of these words comes up as I say them. Scientology is a mind control, fraudulent business pretending to be a religion.
Yes.
That's it.
Well
That's
put.
what it is. Okay, so here's from a voice down under, and she wanted to know
Big
if I
fan.
was what?
No, I'm saying I'm a big fan of hers. It used to be
Oh,
called
me
her
too.
Scientology Audit, but no longer. And I got her name wrong one time, so I apologize. Or called her by
Ah,
her own name. But yeah, guys, subscribe to a Voice Down Under. She's worth
yeah,
subbing to.
subscribe to everybody, certainly to you
Thank you.
and everybody else. Um, okay, now was I on the Boulevard ship? I was in 1972,
Cool.
and for a very short time, which I explained. All right, so there's that. Now this one is okay. This is from Dusty Soda
Oh,
Fountain.
what's up? I remember meeting him. That's funny. That was right before Marilyn Honig. It was right after Marilyn Honig. No, right before Marilyn Honig yelled at me, I believe. I want to recall if it was before or after Marilyn yelled at me. But yeah, I remember meeting him. He's a cool dude.
Yeah, yeah, very cool. All right, so that's good. All right, so the next one is from Monica, Florida. Read the Wall Street Journal article about Scientology in
That's big. I
Clearwater.
missed that. Wow.
Oh, I missed it too. Well,
Note to self.
thank you. Thank you. All right. Now, the next one is from, oh no, wait, we did that. Donna Davis, who's
I'm a
now
big
one of,
fan of Donna's. She
she's helping me.
Do you
Go
have a
on.
favorite? Oh, you put it on the. Yeah, do you have favorite story that I've covered? That's a good question. Probably all the Scientology stuff. I would say is, I would say the most interesting thing. I think were all those RO battles. I would say the Streets LA versus Johnny Rockets. The characters were so fun. I would say even though I've covered more major stories, this Streets LA restraining order is probably my favorite.
I know. Yeah, I love Streets. He's a really great guy.
Yeah, great dude.
We were lucky. We're lucky to have him as part of it. Same for you. We're lucky to have you.
Thank you. And Jacob as well. We're glad to have him. Thank you for
Yeah,
the kind
Jacob
word.
Barkley. All right, so
And
glad
Jacob
to
is
see
who I
you.
went with to explore Gold Space with in Hemet. So me and Jacob both saw
Yeah.
a bunch of it. It was fun.
Oh, cool. Well, thank you for your love and the $1.99.
Yeah,
Thank you. Very
well
kind.
deserved.
All right, now this is from JB808, who makes our thumbnails for my site, and he's
Cool.
really cool.
Keep up the good
Okay,
work.
where did it go? Here it is. Question: Who are the 3 people you have on your YouTube banner, and how are they significant to your channel or life? Is that to you're
I think that's
asking?
to me probably because I have 3 random people on my YouTube page.
Oh, okay.
Very
Who are they?
esoteric.
Who are they?
So I'll explain that. So in addition to doing Scientology, I really like primary elections. Obviously, I'm here in Michigan covering that and covering the Senate stuff, but I'm obsessed with presidential primaries. And when I put that background on, I was in New Hampshire in 2024, filming all the candidates running for the presidential primary. You know, I got to film, went to a Trump rally, Ron DeSantis. I filmed Marianne Williamson and Dean Phillips on the Democratic side. And so the 3 people are the 3 most interesting failed primary candidates to me. 2 of my favorites. One is Nelson Rockefeller, who was the very liberal Republican, kind of a civil rights hero, who's
Right.
been forgotten. If you ever want to Google him, he passed away in an interesting way. Also vice president under Gerald Ford, and so he lost. And then there's Edmund Muskie in the middle, and he was the running mate of Hubert Humphrey back in '68. And I less admire him, but he has a famous moment in New Hampshire where there's a picture of him and the press is accusing him of crying. And it was probably snow running down his cheek, but it derailed his campaign and the
What?
Manchester Union leader, the newspaper, insulted his wife or something, and also said he referred to Canadians, which wasn't true, as Canucks, which was New Hampshire, because there are a lot of French Canadians there. That was a big no-no. So that derailed his campaign. And then lastly is Shirley Chisholm, who was the first serious black woman candidate to run for president and the first woman to get a delegate. Well, that's Margaret Chase, a second woman to get a delegate, but run more seriously in the presidential primary process. But I liked her because she was a renegade and didn't have any establishment support. So I always like the kind of people who have guts. So those are the 3
Right.
people on my YouTube page. Long
That's good.
explanation for it.
Well, thank you. Thank you for telling us about that
Yeah,
too.
no worries.
All right. So
They
now
come with
the next
complicated
one,
stories.
uh, the next one is from Style Audit 1A, who she already said some really good things about you earlier.
Thank you. I'm
Um,
a fan of hers as well. And guys, please subscribe to Style Audit 1A. She's well worth. She has a lot of good interviews with a lot of people. She gets more offended by the ginger. I mean, you could call me ginger. I won't be offended, but Style will be offended on my behalf. So I appreciate it.
what does she get
Fellow ginger.
offended by? What does she get offended by?
Style it says comment. Love you, Dodge. You're always up for fun. Don't call him ginger. LOL.
Oh, you've got a thing on ginger?
Well, no, I think she was saying that it's a slur and that I get guffed for being a ginger. And she in previous chats where she's been on my stream, she has not appreciated people calling redheads gingers. So, but I think I'm a little more tolerant of it, but that's okay.
I love ginger, so for me,
Appreciate
it's
it.
a plus. It's like
Right.
that's a good thing.
It's only a good
Uh,
thing. Yeah.
yeah. All right. This is from JB808. Question: Reflecting back on the past few years of your antisocial Scientology YouTube journey, do you have any lifelong memories and any regrets? Good
Is that for you
question.
or for me or for either?
I think it's for you. I
Okay.
think.
Probably not a lot. I mean, I regret, I took this job for 6 months and I left it. It was for a YouTube that had 4 million subscribers, but it was very right wing. And I left the moment they interviewed Alex Jones, and it was like a supportive interview, and they said he was a hero. And then I said, it's not you, it's Alex Jones. And so I walked out. So I regret having that gap right after I got fired. I immediately went into this job. I wish I had stayed and covered the Masterson trial. Other than that, I was thinking, it's interesting. We don't have to talk too much about it, but I was thinking, in terms of numbers, do I regret going in a different direction than Aaron Smith Levin? But I'm watching some stuff now and some of his numbers now and with Marilyn Honig. So I would say no, and doing the right thing is doing the right thing. So no, I don't, there's not too many. Like I'm trying to think, did I cover all? Yeah, I covered pretty much every trial I wanted to. I covered the ZDT. I covered all the RO stuff. So no, I lack regret, I would say, but give me a few years to have them.
No. And I'm really big on anti-regret. Because
yes, yeah.
when you think about it, regret helps no one. It doesn't help you if you regret something you did. You did it, that's it.
Right.
And it doesn't help anybody else if you tell them and go, I really regret it. No, I have yet to find someone where they go, oh, I feel so much better now that you've told me that.
Right.
It's just sort of like a wasted energy. So that's my opinion on it. And it's not that I don't have emotions where I feel things where I should have done this or should have done that, but it isn't regret. It might be like, I could have changed this, I could have changed that, but I didn't. And that's the way it is. That's
Perfectly
just
put.
the way I am.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so this is from Sieglin. Hubbard left Scientology in the hands of Pat and Annie Broker, right?
Interesting.
When he kicked off. I was there when they announced that. I was at that event. Me too. Miscavige usurped control afterwards. Yeah, I know. I know that.
Tori, I've been meaning to ask you, did you ever meet Pat or Ann Broker or David Mayo?
I didn't meet David Mayo, but I have a 6-page handwritten letter from David Mayo because I wasn't going to go clear. And this one lady said, you have to write David Mayo. He'll help you. And so I wrote him. And here in LA, everybody would say, you're PTS, you need a PTS handling, blah, blah, blah. So I hated PTS. To this day, I still hate people who go, oh, he's PTS. It's like, cringe. So anyway, I wrote to David Mayo and he said, you need a PTS handling. And I wrote him back and I said, you are the senior CS on the fucking planet. And all you have to say is the same shit that these morons in LA have to say to me every day about how I'm PTS. I said, I'm really disappointed. And he wrote me back a 6-page handwritten letter that says, I said this, I didn't say that.
Right. That's right.
I will absolutely help you if nobody else will get on OT3. And I have heard there's a bunch of morons in LA and don't listen to them. And I don't, so there you go. So it was a kind of a cool thing.
I want to ask you, did you ever envision either Mayo or the Brokers being the new heads of Scientology? And was there any surprise or disappointment when all of a sudden found out that Miscavige was the new head?
Well, it was a huge disappointment that Miscavige, because like she said, he just took it over.
Right.
They said in Hubbard's writing, he said Pat and Annie Broker are going to take over.
Right, flares.
Now, I, in the audience, was like, who the hell are they? I knew most.
So interesting. So in the audience, you didn't know them. They weren't famous figures.
I had never heard their names.
I didn't know that.
Now, a lot of other people had that are in the Sea Org.
Right. And I assume in the audience before that, you hadn't heard Miscavige's name either.
No, yeah. I had heard Miscavige's name.
Interesting. So he was kind of good at promoting himself then, that in the way that the Brokers might not have been.
Right. And I don't think Hubbard wanted them to. He was like, they were his private, helping him, and I don't think they wanted him to be a public figure. That's my own personal belief on
Right.
it. So, but I was like, who the hell are they? How are they going to run the church? We don't even know who they are,
Right.
right? And my husband
Interesting.
didn't know him either. So then, but Miscavige then jumps in front and says, I'm running it. And I say to somebody, who the hell is this guy? What why is he going to take over the church? And they said, that's it. Don't ask, don't tell. And that was that was spread throughout the community within minutes.
End
It
of
was like, don't
conversation.
ask, don't tell, just leave it be. And he started the finance police right after that. And, kind of, they were like Nazi Germany. It was like, well,
Right.
who the hell are these guys? And it was like,
Right.
don't ask, don't tell, they'll come after you. And they did. They went after a lot of people. It was awful. It was really awful. So he
Fascinating.
right away came in on a very bad note, I think. So
Did
anyway,
you
there you
have
go.
anybody in, like, was there, like, would you ever think there was anybody who was a logical choice to take over? Like, would you have thought maybe Heber Jensch or something would have been, or is there just not one of those figures?
Yeah.
That would have been, if
Yeah.
with what I know, my thought would have been, oh, it would be Heber Jensch because he just simply was the most visible.
Yeah, no. No, I think the tech itself would ruin whoever took over.
Right, right.
It's just designed that way where it's not
Funny.
it's not, it's not really designed in a way where someone could survive. I don't think.
Right.
That's my opinion. And I have a very funny story about Heber, but we've got to finish that question. So I won't another time remind me to tell you about Heber because it's
I'd
very
like
funny.
that. I'll do it again sometime for sure.
Okay. Now this is from Jacob. Okay, let's see what he has
What's
to
up,
say.
Jacob?
Marty has appeared in videos by the Scientology account Vetted
I never knew
Fact.
that. I'm going to screenshot that.
Yeah, where he
Vetted
said,
fact. I didn't know idea he's doing anything as of late. Fascinating. Thanks, Jacob.
ah, what is it called? Vetted Fact.
Vetted facts.
Wow. And that's recent? Does he know if
Yeah,
that's
that's the last few months. He's saying, yeah.
wow.
But I don't even know what he looks like. I wonder what he looks like.
Well, you can probably Google Marty photograph.
Well, I know what he looks like in general, but I wonder what he looks like, now, 10 years later or something.
Put in it 2026.
Yeah, maybe it'll show up. He's had such a low profile, but it'll be an interesting video to see.
Yeah, I've had a lot of fun with AI recently.
You're getting good at it. I'm too scared. I'm like an old man. It scares me. I don't understand it. I don't want to touch it. But I loved your song.
I didn't either, but did you hear my thing about correcting him?
No.
No. Well, what happened is Scientology, my friend used to be at the Wilcox Hotel, and she used to call it the home of the half-pound cockroach. It was a Sea Org building that was filthy. And then Scientology finally sold it. A hotel bought it, fixed it all up. It's all snazzy now. We went there and had dinner on the top roof and everything. And then now Scientology has bought it back for $18
I didn't know
million.
that.
Yeah.
Mm.
So I wanted to get a photograph of it and post it on my Facebook site, just telling this story. And so I posted in what I thought was Google. I know it's AI now because they say thinking, and that's AI, right? So I said, photograph of the Wilcox Hotel that Scientology recently bought. And it came back, Scientology hasn't bought a building in years. And so I thought, okay, they're wrong. And I know they're machines. So I thought,
Well,
okay.
yeah, I could think of, a bunch of places, org openings and stuff. They buy buildings.
I know that. No, I know that. But I thought, okay, get out of it and get back in and ask it again. So I do ask it again. The same thing comes back. Scientology has never bought a building in years. So I hit the microphone. This is the first time I ever did this. And I said, look, you're wrong. And I want you guys to know this. Scientology did buy a building for $18 million 2 weeks ago. And my friend lived in that building and used to call it the home of the half-pound cockroach. And in under a minute, it comes back this whole long thing of like, oh my God, it must be so incredible to have lived through 2 decades of information. And it just was very, very compassionate and very,
Hmm,
thank you. They said, thank you for correcting us. We were
interesting.
wrong. So I was like, wow. So then my brother has the stroke and passes away. And I'm looking for one of his songs or some video about my brother. And they come on again and they go, wow, we're so sorry to hear about your brother. And so we have this whole conversation. Like they're asking, like, what kind of music did you grow up with?
Right.
And I'm telling them, and it's just this really compassionate, incredible thing. So I'm having a lot of fun with them. I am. I know a lot of people are like they're awful and they're ruining the world and everything else, and that may be true, but I'm going to have fun with them until they
Yeah.
do.
Yeah. They
I'm,
can help
I'm
you with
like
your
my
life.
brother.
Sure.
Yeah, have fun until you have a stroke. That's
Why not?
so.
Take full advantage.
Why not? Why not? And they're filled with information. I mean, it's just shocking to know
Yeah.
how
Right. Yeah.
how much they know. I mean, I knew they know, and they have to know me because they said at the end of the first one about the building, that must be incredible to feel the quote unquote vibes then and now. Now, a lot of people that would not work for them, but I'm an old hippie, so that worked perfectly for me. Anyway, just
Well,
fun.
good.
All right, so now did we do the thing with Marty appeared in the videos by Saturday?
Yeah. Yeah. I think we talked about it.
Okay, okay.
I might need to run off to bed soon. Sadly, it's about 1 a.m. here, but we can do more
No.
questions.
Okay, what are you hoping to achieve career-wise, long term, and what steps are you taking to get there? Rooting for you, Dodge. Okay, that's from JV808.
Oh, hey, I appreciate that. It's hard. It's a little scary, trying to do any sort of career with YouTube. Um, I would say the goal at some point would be I'd like to be a political pundit. It would be good to be featured on other YouTubes. I think in addition to my Scientology takes, some of my political takes. And I already have to some degree been featured on some big court channels. So that's cool. So I'd like to do more of that. I think just a very basic thing would be, be a featured pundit and make, you know, uh, a minimum wage living. That would be cool. Like, I think off YouTube, I'll make maybe like an Arkansas minimum wage barely, but it'd be nice to make I don't know, like a Connecticut minimum wage. And so I'm a long way from that, I would say. And so I think the real tangible goal is instead of average having my views be 1,000 to 5,000, it'd be nice if there were, 10,000 to 15 where you can make where you can make at least decent money. I don't know if I'll get there or not. I think that's the scariest part is seeing if any of this actually pays dividends or not. And some things do and some things don't. But, I'm looking for the Luigi Mangione trial, which the hearings got a lot of views. And so the full trial, I think, will be interesting. And I think, I'll try to make my mark really staying a long time in New Hampshire for the presidential race. So I want to say by January of 2027, when they all start announcing, I want to be right there and try to get on their press lists and really try to make something of myself during that early primary process and see what happens.
Right,
But I would say
right.
that would be my goal.
Good. And my key thing is persist. That's it. It's
Yeah,
it's
I'm
like
certainly
more than
persisting.
anything, just persist.
Yeah.
Because it's very I've learned that years ago looking at actors. And some of the really great actors are not people that you would think would be great actors. But what did they do? They stayed at it. No matter what, they stayed at it. And that's a key thing. So anyway,
Right.
you're really good. So just stay
Thank
at
you.
it.
Thank you. Means a lot. Well, and that's a big part of it. Like if I hear that I'm doing good work for people I respect, it, encourages me to keep going. So,
Yeah.
and that's the thing. I really enjoy it. The process is really fun. And TV news, working your way up, the TV news jobs are always really boring and time consuming and awful. And this is fun because I get to speak with people I enjoy speaking with only, and I, get to cover only topics that I enjoy. So and for less amount of time than like a full-time job would be. So, I'm
Yeah.
lucky in
And you
that
get to
regard.
travel around too.
I'm obsessed with traveling. I've been obsessed with it since I was 15. And I've always wanted to spend my whole life just being a drifter. So this kind of enables that.
That's my brother. So you've got to look him
Interesting.
up, DJ Chicago, because that's all he
Cool.
did. He left in the 70s, and he's been drifting around
I
since
love
then.
that. So he did it for a long time then, and he never got tired of it. This sounds exactly like me. So I've been to all 50 states. I've been to 27 states in Mexico, 6 provinces in Canada. Like, I love the continent, the whole continent.
Good
Thank
for
you.
you.
Yeah, I know most of North America. I've seen like 80% of it.
Wow, that's fabulous. Well,
Thank
good
you.
for you.
Thank you. Yeah, I never thought it's like means that much. They think, oh, it's kind of, seen more than most people have seen. Seen more of Mexico than most Mexicans have seen. Seen more of Canada than most Canadians have seen.
Sure. And that's very important. All right, now here's
Thanks.
this.
Yeah.
Little Misfit in the Woods. Okay. Love you, Tori. I've been following you quietly for years. Aw, I'm a little bit younger than you and really admire your strength and humor. You rock. Thank you for sharing with us.
Love that.
You are so welcome.
Well
I
deserved.
love that. Yeah, thank you so much. See, that's what I mean. That's the persistence. This is the first time I've met that person.
Right. Cool. There you go. You already made an impact.
So you have the same thing where you have people that follow you,
Yeah.
but you don't know it.
That's what keeps me going. The biggest thing was I just want to feel useful doing something I enjoy. That is meaningful work. And, I get to do meaningful work and I enjoy doing it, and people find my input useful. So, in that regard, it's very fulfilling. It's all I ever really want.
Yeah. I'm telling you, there's a couple of interviews that my brother did that you should really watch.
Oh, great. Well, send me some if you're able to access it, and I'll look up DJ Chicago as well.
Just put DJ Chicago.
Perfect.
It'll come up.
I'll check him out. I'm excited.
David Christman is his name. David Christman.
Okay, David Christman.
Look
Cool.
up on Facebook, David Christman, or YouTube, David Christman, or DJ Chicago, or Chicago. A lot of kids call him Chicago. Anyway.
Nice.
Whatever. But I think it would help you because you're on the same path or similar.
Yeah, I'd like to, anybody who has similar lifestyles, I think I could learn a lot from. That would be awesome.
Yeah. All right. So now this is from JB808. Where'd it go? Okay. Question to the MC Dodge. Okay. What does that mean? The MC Dodge.
MC. So I was on a reality show where I was a rapper. So they're calling me MC, like EMCC.
Oh.
EMCEE.
Oh, cute.
But MC is the shorthands for it.
Okay, thank you. How did you get on Ice-T's rap school? And did you gain any local fame from it afterwards? And would love to hear a bar or two about Tory.
I can try. All right. Well, first I'll answer the question. How did I get at Ice-T's rap school? So I think your mod connected with me. She might even have a clip, which they'd be welcome to play. I don't know if she still has it. Oh, there you go.
The most criminally beat challenged person is Dodge.
Wow.
You got it.
He was even snapping his fingers, was like,
just snap.
I am a white prep school kid. I don't have any beef. I'm not ashamed of it. Ice-T seems like I should be ashamed of it, but I'm not. Yo, I'm gonna flow. I'm gonna go away from this place because I've been too long here. It's such a disgrace. Hey, hummingbird, can you give me another word?
Did you just call me a hummingbird?
Just try a freestyle.
That
Fun,
is
right?
so great. I can't believe
Thank you. So that's rapper Ice-T.
That was fabulous. Wow. Thank you for the question, JB808. Wow. That was amazing. That was really amazing. You should put that on your YouTube site.
Guess I should have so long ago. I was 15, so it's about 20 years ago, but
Yeah.
I should, it's a fun little, the whole thing is on YouTube if you want to search like Ice-T's rap school. And how they're asking how it came to be. So I went to a pretty well-to-do prep school in New York City called York Prep. And funny, its only claim to fame is that Robert Chambers, who was the preppy killer, in the 80s. It was a big murder case. He's a notable alumni of the York Prep. But that's the only one that's that notable. But so apparently Ice-T, it was a reality show. It was on VH1. It was the sequel to, well, it's based on the Jack Black movie, School of Rock. And then there was a reality show based off the Jack Black movie called Rock School. And Gene Simmons went to the UK of KISS and taught all these kids how to be rockers. And the official second season was rapper Ice-T coming to the US to teach kids how to rap. And they apparently went to 3 different schools. And the most prestigious one, Dalton, said no, that was too silly. And then he went to Dwight, which is where a lot of the rejects went, and Paris Hilton even went there. So not very smart people. And Dwight, they found that the kids were really just not smart, that they wouldn't make good TV. So York was the one school that said yes, and the kids were at least somewhat smart enough to want to film. And then they interviewed every single kid in the school. I didn't think I'd be chosen because the school had like 600 people or something. But I was I still am, but and I still dress funny now and still dress vintage now. But I think they interviewed me. I said I was in a 1940s like double-breasted suit. I said I liked Perry Como and Sinatra, and I didn't like rap at all. And I was like, all right, well, they're like, well, this kid's the complete opposite, so we'll go with him. So that's how it happened. You want to hear a bar about Tory? So I freestyled, which it wasn't very good, but I tried. But I'm here with Tory. It's not getting gory because she's the one that brings people together. She's making this society better. Scientology is going to try to take her down, but they look like clowns because there's no clowning around when Tory's in LA because Tory's in town. You about to see what goes down. It's Scientology. That's what's going down. There you go. That's my little freestyle for you, Tory.
Wow, that is fantastic.
Thank you.
You are good at that. You are good at that. I love it too.
I appreciate it. I'm glad.
Now, can you send me a copy of that?
Sure. I'll send you the link of the show. You can watch the whole show, which is there's like 7 episodes broken up, but it's like an hour long altogether.
Yeah. All right. Send me that, and then can you send me the thing of what you just did?
Oh, cool. Yeah, I could probably clip that. I'm sure I could. Kelly might be able to do that in the stream as well, but I could after it's posted, I could do that too for sure. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.
Fun little memento.
I know, really fun and very good. You just did that right now on the
Yeah,
spot?
that was on top of my head. Yeah, because I was a freestyler. I had to just make it up. I couldn't write anything down.
Oh, that is good, man. You are really
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, stop giving me
That's funny, Kelly. I'll do it, Kelly. I'll do it. Don't worry. I'll clip it for you, Tory. It'll take me a couple minutes. I got you.
Don't worry. Take your time. All right. Well, thank you so much,
Thank you.
for being on here.
A lot of fun.
I loved it. I really loved
Me
it.
too.
It was really fun. I was like a little worried because I'm not big on politics, although now because I watched The American Experiment.
Yeah, I'll check that out. Yeah.
It's fantastic. But I'm definitely back into I've always been kind of a history buff, but not political.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you. It's a lot of inside baseball, and it gets very granular. But there's a lot of non-political things I like to talk about. And Scientology is certainly a huge part of it, the biggest part of it.
I know. So you did a great job tonight.
Thank you.
Worked out really
That's very
good.
kind. Thank you. Well, thank you. And again, it really meant the world to me when I first got into LA, and I had just been fired, and I had met you, and you were so encouraging. I thought, all right, cool. I've almost found my people, or even though I got fired, there's a segment of people who appreciate what I did. So it really meant the world that even at that first protest, that you kind of welcomed me with open arms. And I wouldn't be here without, I think, that first, warm embrace. So thank you for that.
You are so welcome, and thank you for coming and doing it.
Yeah,
I
of
really
course.
appreciate it. I really appreciate it.
Let's do it
All right,
again.
well,
I'm around whenever you are.
We will. All right.
Perfect.
Well, you take care of you, and we will see you in the future.
Looking forward. Keep up the good work, Tory.
Thank you. You too. All right. Thank you.
Take care, guys.
So much.
Bye-bye. That was
She was a flower child dreamer with the whole wide world to see. Then they said, think for yourself, while handing her what to believe. They painted shadows on the windows, said the outside world was cold, but she kept a spark inside her, and that spark refused to fold. Magoo was here with an open heart and open eyes. Magoo was here, laughing loud beneath kinder skies. She broke through the fear, found a world that holds her near. Till next time, take care. Magoo was here.